I can't go back to you, my friend. Don't even ask, don't play pretend.
Emily understood that David was cheating on her long before he admitted it himself. As they say, there was a full bouquet of classic signs of an unfaithful husband. He began to pay less attention to her, although in general, in the last 8 years, he was not much. He was delayed from work for a long time for dubious reasons. He constantly carried a phone with him, put a password on it, and from the joint budget, the amounts began to disappear, about which David, who previously loved detailed financial reports for himself and his wife, could not clearly explain where they were going. Cheats? Sighed the best friend of the world, who looked at Emily to have a tea and gossip about everything in the world. Cheats, Emily confirmed in a daily tone. Cut off more pies. I think next time I'll try to add more grated cheese to the filling. How can you talk about a pie when there is such a thing here? Isabel waved her hands. You can. The hostess calmly revived the house and went to cut the pie. For herself. The pies are delicious with me for life will remain. And the man he is, then not. Well, let him finally add a little liveliness to the colorless voice. She has already filed a statement for a divorce. Meaning, but he is that David is not yet aware of the evening. I will say you, by the way, but I do not go to the kebab on the weekend. I still have to collect things. Emily wrinkled her forehead. I feel that the technique cannot be saved. I have no checks for a long time, and Svekrofia just adores it. Either a juice press will take us a couple of days, or a bread and butter oven for a week. So let her buy her own, said Isabel. Or let her son provide for her. And this is you for your money. Do not think about conceding. Sometimes it's easier to concede than then the mother-in-law will find me even in Antarctica and will demand to give. Emily wrinkled. Nothing, I'll buy it even better later. Where are you going, by the way? To your parents? Perhaps, Emily sighed. No matter how hard it is, and it's all relatively easy in an emotional psychological sense. But in terms of what to do next after a divorce in life, practically, it was not so easy. All this was not so simple. The fact was that Emily's parents lived on the outskirts, and even in one bedroom once owned a wonderful 3-bedroom, by the way, but in the middle of the 2000s they risked selling it. Emily by this time was already married to David. Buy a 1-bedroom apartment and invest in business. They hoped that the investment would return quickly and become, maybe even millionaires, buy 3 more such apartments as they were. Emily, by the way, did not invest her share of real estate in this business 100% profitably. But the parents? But it turned out that a distant friend either divorced them. She did not go into this business 100% profitably, but her parents did. But it turned out that a distant friend either divorced them or let them down. He himself turned out to be a useless businessman, and the consequences were simple. Neither money nor an apartment. True, Emily did not save her money either, because in those distant times she was, as she already understood now, purely a fool in love and gave her husband money. They did a major repair, he closed the car loan, and even sent his blood to the sanatorium. In general, it turned out well, and it was strange. I don't care about anything anymore. Isabel, once again expressing her sympathy for Emily's family tragedy, finally left, and she went to pack her things. And it turned out to be so difficult. At least because if Emily had been going a lot over the years, then 1 road bag was enough. And now I had to put such a bunch of things somewhere, not in bags, but to put everything in knots. As a result, Emily decided to go to the market, and she just crossed the threshold of the apartment with several strong road bags and a couple of huge braids when she met David, who had returned home. His eyes were round, and their expressions were shocked. Where are you going? He asked. I'm leaving you, she said simply. Here are the things I am slowly collecting. The application, by the way, for the divorce, which I have already filed. What have you done? And what did you expect, husband? That I will stay? All so proud that the husband just brought his mistress aside and not brought her to our house. I said I was sorry yesterday. And you? And what does it change? We didn't have time to finish yesterday, and I could explain. I will listen to the explanation about how black holes are arranged in space, or why dolphins save people, but why you decided to change? No, leave these fairy tales to someone else. It's not that simple, dear. Let it pass. Emily frowned and pushed David to the side with his shoulder. There were still these gestures that did not let go was not enough. I have to explain everything to you, he splashed after her, followed by David. Well, say, Marino smiled gloomily. Just keep in mind that I will listen to you less than the radio in the minibus. She began to pack her things, and David started talking. The story began even before he met Emily, when David was a green graduate of the university and a guy in love with his classmate Julia. All friends, acquaintances, and sometimes random people said what a beautiful couple they are. Only the parents of the young had a different opinion. Each of the parties believed that their precious and only child, grown into an adult, was somehow not smart enough to choose a second half for himself. Otherwise, on both sides, they thought that the party had chosen some kind of inappropriate one. And it would seem that everything is simple, because the 21st century is already in the yard. You can figure it out yourself without the instructions of your parents. But Clara, unlike David, was not ready for a riot, and she agreed with the opinion of her parents. They had to part. David confessed to Emily. If then just another man stood between them, he would not give up. He would defend his love. But when Clara herself, with tears in her eyes, confessed that she would continue to love him, but they would not be together, because then she will lose love, respect, and support for her father and mother. In general, David could not do anything about this. He could not afford to become a said that maybe it would work out. But it didn't. The point was that for David it turned out to be too painful in the end. To communicate with her, to see her nearby, and to understand that she is not him. And so they stopped communicating at all. And just in this difficult period of his life, he met Emily. And yes, David swore to her. He had a happy life, nothing to regret, nothing to be sad about. Then how did it happen, Emily asked, that your Clara divorced her husband or with whom she divorced and remembered what your first love was? No. David shook his head. Everything is not so simple. It turned out that Clara could not arrange a personal life for a long time. She devoted herself to her career, she took care of her parents, and with great enthusiasm took part in the life of her cousin's children. And then real love came into her life. And 6 years ago she finally got married. She invited me to the wedding, David explained. I told you then that the business trip was for 2 days. In fact, I was at the wedding. And why couldn't you go there with me? I don't know. For some reason, I decided so. David shook his shoulders. I don't understand myself. Okay, it doesn't matter. Emily sighed, but she had suspicions. And then you realized that you still love her? Do you hate me? I just want to figure it out. No, I was just happy for her then. I tried to imagine what it would be like if she married me. But I remembered our wedding with you. And I thought that Clara and I were lucky. Well, we have family happiness. For her, for me, it worked out in its own way. Let it be with other people. We sometimes texted later, called each other, exchanged photos from vacations. They had a son named Grishka. Boy, looks like a fodder. David was silent for a long time, looking out the window. Emily did not rush him. It only seemed to her that her husband was going to continue until something important, something that would finally make everything clear. He died, Clara's husband, a year ago in a car accident. Her parents, too. The 4 of them were driving in the car. Clara survived, as doctors say, by a miracle. Emily sighed. No matter how she treated that woman, she could not but sympathize with such a terrible loss. It was just terrible. Clara was strong, David continued. She knew she had to take care of her son. Sometimes I visited them, and gradually. Will you believe me if I say that at first I didn't think about anything like that? I just wanted her to be a little easier for her. Sometimes I took her to the market or somewhere else. Sometimes I helped to sort out the documents. There is an inheritance. We took Logan to the park, walked, and then David took a hard sip, and felt that this part of the story was now not easy for him. I suddenly realized that I look at Clara differently. You see, I started to imagine and try on the role of her husband, Father Logan. I suddenly thought that I might have a normal, full-fledged family. Sorry, I'm just saying terrible things. Can you not continue? Emily went to the kitchen, got up to the sink, and started washing the cup. Then I realized that it was actually clean and with a nervous gesture, so she almost broke up. Put the dishes in place. I wanted to drink tea, then suddenly I wanted to. In general, you decided to exchange one broken wife, infertile, for one with a child. Well, it's convenient, what can I say, and profitable. She needs you very much. Support, defender, feeder. You know, if it makes it easier for you, you can hit me. David lowered his head. It won't. Well, I'll hit you. What's the point? What, this time machine will start. No. So there is no point. In general enough. Let's continue talking, but let's change the topic, okay? I filed the divorce documents, and now we just need to decide. You have to take these documents. David said in a deaf voice, "We cannot divorce." I did not hear. Emily's jaw almost hung off. What do you want? I don't understand. What are you trying to achieve? Do you want to leave your wife and a mistress with a child at the same time? You know, I didn't expect such insolence from you. It's already beyond the line. It's generally, you got it wrong. David looked carefully at his wife as if he wanted to burn a hole with his gaze. Everything is wrong. But how? Emily's nerves were fluttering on the hair on a thread thinner than silk, and she was already dark in the eyes. Explain already. And David explained. In short, cut sentences, he told a terrible truth. It turned out that Clara had recently been diagnosed with a disease. She had only a few months left, and she decided to ask David for one thing. She wanted him to adopt Logan after her death, and that they and Emily became his parents. The fact was that Clara's relatives refused to take the boy to them. This is how unexpectedly the people whom she considered her loved ones for years suddenly showed that they were not ready for such responsibility. Someone doesn't need children at all. Someone has enough of their own. It turned out that Logan is taking a risk of going to an orphanage, if only David and Emily don't take him for themselves. We were already going to meet you. Clara was preparing to talk to you these days, because of course you can't decide the same thing alone. And you know, she understands that you can refuse. I didn't promise her anything for you, believe me. I understand that this is not at all what you were counting on. And Logan, is he really not your son? Emily asked with suspicion. Exactly. David sighed. It will be possible, can do a genetic test. He's from another man for sure. And you at the same time. Emily waved her hand in the air. That is, are you ready to adopt your first and unforgettable child for years of love, even though the child is not yours? It's weird. I just can't imagine how you came to this decision at all. Yes, I don't know that myself. David smiled bitterly. I just suddenly realized that I couldn't leave this guy as he is. But don't answer me right now, okay? It's not easy. You need to think, of course. There is a lot to discuss. But you just think, okay? It seemed to Emily that she was sleeping and seeing some kind of nightmare, and still can't wake up. She nodded. Okay, I need a couple of days. No more words about it. Everything is fine. We just live next door, like neighbors, okay? David agreed, and he really did not talk about it the next day, and in general did not communicate much with his wife. Emily pondered, although it didn't fit in her head, but she immediately took the option to consult with her parents. She had no reason to burden them with her troubles, but Isabel had to put everything on the next day. Because the friend, as she saw Emily, she realized that something serious had happened to her. Something more than a divorce. I don't even know what to say now. Isabel's opinion was expressed after she learned everything. If even your words are over, then it's all very bad. Emily tried to discharge the atmosphere with a joke. You see, if you think logically, then I can probably agree like a fool. And they will ride you, Isabel picked up. Yeah, but there's another option. You see, I've always wanted children. To feel this joy from motherhood. And I love David. So maybe this is our chance. It's scary that he came up like that, very scary. But maybe we should take a risk. And then, Emily took her breath away. We will have a family. And his soul will calm down that he did the right thing. He did not betray the one he loved once. Confused, strange, unpredictable, she shook Isabel's head. But of course you decide. Emily thought that she had never seen her husband so happy as the moment when she told him that she was ready to meet Clara. Emily decided to do it. She decided that she was ready to make some effort, almost break her pride, and somehow something else. But she will do it. In the end, This can be much better than bitter loneliness. If she divorces now, and then what awaits her? Who will need her? So there is only a path of forgiveness and reconciliation. And that's it. And there, whatever happens, Clara turned out to be a very nice, pretty woman, and her son Emily really liked it. Hi, she smiled to Logan. This is for you. She handed him a gift. A purple plush bunny. Thank you, the boy replied. Do you want a cake? Mom bought a cake, and they all drank tea together. And they first talked about the dry trifles, which helped somehow stop being so nervous. Then Logan was sent to watch cartoons, and the adults began to discuss the most difficult. Yes, Clara is now trying to heal, but the doctors said that this is a useless occupation. But it was necessary to take medicine to at least ease the pain. You call if anything. In the end, when they began to leave, Emily said, Anytime. But you are not alone. We are with you. When Emily handed over all the paint to Isabel, she felt so bad that she burst into tears. But then she still announced to her friend that she was a fool, that she could try to find her happiness elsewhere. Maybe he would have met a widower with children. There is no guarantee that he would have met. Emily resolutely objected. And please, I have already made a decision. Don't talk me out of it, okay? Emily took the divorce application, and they and David started preparing all those many papers that were to be required to adopt Logan. Now Emily practically always accompanied her husband when he went to visit Clara, and David also swore that, that's the same thing with Clara, it just happened once, and promised that it would not happen again, honestly. Emily was touched by such tactfulness of her husband, and then, feeling a little stupid, she said that she did not mind if he would give Clara all the care, attention, and love that is possible, because she needs it. Time flew by, rushed rapidly. Clara went to a neighboring city to some private clinic. Her doctor insisted on this very much, and at that time Logan settled in the apartment of Emily and David's apartment. And here Emily was covered with a wave. She suddenly drowned in a feeling that she herself defined as maternal love for this boy. She spoiled Logan, gave him all her free time, and bright pictures already appeared in her head. So they take Logan to the first grade with their husband. Later they will buy a dacha and will go to the summer to rest on it, and will go with the boy to the river and to the forest for mushrooms. And then Logan will grow up, but he will be a glorious boy. And for sure, yes, it will definitely be so. He will stop calling her Aunt Emily over time and will call her Mom. And now Emily suddenly realized that she was happy. Yes, it was wrong to be happy when it came from the nightmarish life tragedy of another person. But Emily just couldn't do anything with herself. And then it happened. Just one of the days when Clara had already returned to the city, she called David, and they talked about something for a long time. And then, having completed the call, he turned to his wife, Beliamila. What happened? Emily put her hand on her heart. Did it get worse? She thought that they had a couple more months in stock. Clara is no longer ill, often blinking, said David. Recovered. The medicine was one drug. It helped. The doctor said, and 0.1% is not. But it helped, she recovers. Emily sat down. It's good that there was a chair below, so that it did not fall on the floor. Tears flowed from her eyes. What happiness! A living person will be. The child will not remain an orphan. Yes, the joy was great. But Emily did not go far to compare the changes that happened with what could theoretically follow them, and when she finally thought about it, it was like a lightning bolt, because suddenly she realized that Clara is the lover of her husband, and he has feelings for her in principle. What prevents them now, so to speak, to continue their relationship? After all, in this case, David can be Logan's father, and she is Emily. But is she at all superfluous? Figuratively speaking, in this equation. And so it so happened that David was the first to talk about all this. Clara wants me to divorce you, and we will get married, he said. That's how? Emily grinned, looking at her cup of tea so closely, as if she could read her future in the teacups at the bottom. I can understand her, probably. New life, right? New horizons and all that. Can I be serious? Do you think I'm kidding? No, if you look at it from the other side, then this black ingratitude turns out. I, it turns out, was ready to become a mother to a stranger's child. And she, without hesitation, wants to take away a stranger's husband? I can only envy her impudence. I will never be able to do that. Or maybe it would be easier to live like that. Emily, David rarely called her by name, but now he called her and covered her hand with his own. And I actually told her that I did not agree. What? Emily asked in a hoarse voice, and if her husband had now announced that he was flying to explore the planet Mars, she would have realized it easier than what sounded. I don't want this. David shook his head. I myself do not understand how it is. Somehow the thing that I felt for her burned out. Or maybe I'm already used to the fact that she disappeared from my life. No, it's not like that. I just realized. What did you realize? What were you ready to do for me? For the sake of our family? Actually, I was ready for it for myself. I myself also really wanted a real family and a child, Emily admitted. But if you were against me, if I didn't feel anything for you, then yes, I would not agree. And that means, picked up David, that we mean something to each other, right? And here's what I'll tell you. I refuse to Laura, and I will refuse at least 1,000 times. That's it. Now that's it. And Logan, how? Emily's voice trembled. He's a nice boy, said David. I got attached to him. We are together, but he is not my son, and I think it will be easier for him when his mother meets some lonely man initially, and he will become his father. Then everything will be right. Yes, I think that they will definitely have a good future. And then in Emily's life, something happened that she was not at all ready for. David said that it was time for them to take a child from a nursery, a very small baby. But your mother, Emily had started, but her husband did not let her finish. I was ready to go against her opinion when we were thinking of taking Logan, so why should I look at him now? And in general, I needed to understand this a long time ago. That we have a separate life with you, and only we can decide what will happen to her. Less than a year later, Emily and David became adoptive parents immediately for 2 babies, twins Lily and Norman. And they loved them with all their hearts, right away and forever. And even Emily's mother-in-law over time accepted their decision and also got attached to the babies. And then they found out that Clara was getting married, and she invited David and Emily to her wedding, offered to make up and be friends. But they refused because they decided that it was time to finally close this chapter in their life and start everything a little over again. For they're in only their family, and only to his family.